Welcome to Custom Creator. I am Danny Lee, OGT. And I seen something earlier, and I'll admit, I watched it. I shouldn't have, but I seen this thing, 11 things you might not know about Led Zeppelin. And I've seen many videos like this about different artists, and usually they're not what they say they are. This one was. This was some things I knew about, but it goes into much greater detail. Gregory, who's in the bathroom right now, as you see, is just waiting for him to get back. He doesn't know I'm recording yet, so we'll laugh at him when he comes back and I'll tell him. But anyway, we're going to do this because it's got some really cool content, and these might be 11 things you may not know about Led Zeppelin, even if you're a super fan. I consider myself a super fan. All right, Gregory, we are recording. I'm going to unmute you. And everybody knows what you know. So let's find out what the video knows. And Bo knows, probably my head, Bo Jackson. I don't know. Bo knows Zeppelin. Let's go.
Yeah, Zeppelin's one of those enigmatic groups, so this should be really fascinating.
Yeah, I wish I hadn't watched it all, but hey, they say hindsight's 20/20. There's a country song.
I heard it on the X. "11 things you might not know about Led Zeppelin." Please hit like and subscribe. Number 11. Houses of the Holy. Behind the cover. The story of this astonishing design begins in 1972, when Led Zeppelin, at the height of its creative powers, commissioned the Hypnosis team, led by Storm Thorgerson and Aubrey Powell, to design the cover for the band's new album. Jimmy's first meeting with Thorgerson didn't go well. According to Page, the designer proposed a cover of a tennis racket and spieled his layout of ideas on the table. "Racket, don't you get it?" Jimmy's response was, "Are you trying to imply that our music is a racket?" Thorgerson was shown the door. He had some balls. Imagine, on a first meeting with a client. After having ruled out that racket concept, Zeppelin opted for a cover. Inspired by the novel Childhood's End by Arthur C. Clarke, it was the result of a collage of several photographs taken at Giant's Causeway, Northern Ireland, by Aubrey Powell of Hypnosis. Zeppelin was sold on the idea of a naked family painted with silver and gold makeup, photographed at a remote, mystical, sun-kissed rock formation. In a 2008 interview, one of the two models on the cover, Stephen Gates, speaks about the iconic image.
You are on the cover of a Led Zeppelin album, is this right?
Yes. Most people in the country will have seen my bare bottom at some point.
Which one is it?
It's Houses of the Holy. Yeah, this is me and my sister, and all of those children are myself and my sister. It's a multiple exposure shot. With them, as I say, I'm sort of quite. It's one of those weird things. It's a very apocalyptic image. There's these sort of naked, silvery children going up the Giant's Causeway in Ireland.
I think that's one of the most amazing rock album covers of all time.
And there were apparently lots of adults there as well, but because it was raining, they wouldn't take their clothes off, whereas me and Sam went, "Yeah, brilliant!" and ran up the Giant's Causeway. And they took it, it happened over a week, and that's what came of it.
Stephen Gates, decades later, got to hear from Aubrey Powell about that iconic photo in a radio documentary.
Every morning, we had to get up at about 5 o'clock, and both you and Sam had to be made up in gold and silver. Now, the third day, we ran out of makeup. We set off to find something else to use, and And Tom Smith came back to me and said, the only thing I can find is spray paint, car spray paint. We got up the next morning and sprayed everybody with car spray paint. And then your mother asked why it wasn't coming off in the bath.
With the work done and approved, there was a printing error, and it came out under reddish colors that gave the cover a more interesting aspect, since the result until that moment did not finish either to please. For its sheer audacity and beauty, the cover of Houses of the Holy would become one of the most iconic album covers of all time. From No Racket to No Quarter. Number 10.
Jimmy said, "You shuttered the door." I mean, I don't know if he meant like a racket the way, or just like music is racket. But either way, that was not a good concept. And the fact that they spent all this time with the coloring, and there was a printing error, and none of it could come out this fucking weird color anyway. It's just, I mean, they had to wear spray paint. And their moms wondered why it didn't come up in the bob.
I do think that the reddish color actually made the album cover look more apocalyptic.
Yeah.
What they're going for, but it definitely was really striking. But yeah, they spray painted kids for that cover.
Well, I mean, there wasn't no damn Photoshop then.
Yeah, you did what you had to do to get what you needed to do, get what you needed to make. So
that's right. Let's go to number 10.
It's okay. They probably thought it was cool.
10.
Sorry.
Led Zeppelin meets Elvis. Musical giants Led Zeppelin and Elvis Presley encountered each other 3 times. The first meeting took place at the Forum in Los Angeles in May 1974. Led Zeppelin were in town to attend a launch party for their record label, Swan Song, and attended Elvis's Forum show the following night.
It's a huge place, JD. It's a long way from the auditorium in Memphis, you know that? If we could start together, fellas, because we got Led Zeppelin out there and Jimmy Darren and a whole bunch of people, and let's try to look like we know what we're doing. What are we doing? Now, what we're doing.
After the show, Jimmy Page told Elvis that on the rare occasions when Zeppelin would sound check, Robert Plant liked to sing Elvis songs. When Elvis heard that, he turned to Plant and asked him which song was his favorite to sing. Robert replied with, "Love Me." Later, as Elvis was walking out the door to leave, he turned back and looked at Plant and began belting out his song, "Love Me." Plant joined in on the singing, and they sang the rest of the song together. Robert Plant and Led Zeppelin. Recall that first encounter with Elvis on Late Night with David Letterman in 2012.
And the king, Elvis, we met him, the 3 of us, 4 of us.
Now, how was that in terms of personalities?
Well, he had a lot of chicks. He got something going on, but...
So you had that in common with Elvis, a lot of chicks.
On their third encounter, it was at the Washington-Baltimore airport. Elvis and Zeppelin were playing in the D.C. area. Elvis arrived on the Lisa Marie, Presley's private jet, and Led Zeppelin arrived on their Caesar's chariot. It was one heck of a sight to see these 2 private jets sitting side by side on the tarmac. David Stanley, who is Elvis's stepbrother and bodyguard, recalled that event. I asked Elvis if I could go with Zeppelin that night for their concert. He said no. When I asked him why, he said, "Look at the bottom of your paycheck." Speaking of Elvis, or in this case singing, here's Robert Plant on The Late Late Show in 2018, recalling when he once went head-to-head with a Taiwan man in China, singing Elvis songs.
So we went to a karaoke night. Yeah. And the options were, I wanted to sing, okay, and I'd had too much to drink, so I thought, ABBA? No. And there was Elvis, so I said, okay, I'll put my name down. And a bloke from Taiwan put his name down for Elvis. Right. So we were competing.
Oh, it's on.
Oh, yeah, wow. Yeah. So I'm doing all my bit, you know, a man of a certain age, you know, I was neck and neck with this guy, but all the time the Chinese were going for the Taiwanese guy, and I was really, really good. in Beijing 22 years ago, I was beaten by a Taiwanese Elvis impersonator.
Well, let me tell you this. Worst thing that happened to you. We've found that impersonator, and he's here tonight, ladies and gentlemen. I'm joking. Stick around while we need to.
Number 9. Led Zeppelin, Behind the Symbol.
I'm sorry. I was beaten up by a person. Robert Plant. I mean, that's just the funniest fucking thing I've ever heard in my life. But one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard is Elvis and Robert singing that song together. So
yeah. Imagine being someone there, just listening to Robert Plant and Elvis Presley singing that song together.
So I give this thing a shout out in the Elvis reaction we just done. If you guys want to check that out, it's beautiful. So.
And then for poor Robert to go from singing the song with Elvis himself to getting beaten by a Taiwanese man at the karaoke bar. Life ain't always fair, even if you're Robert Plant.
Right. Usually it's definitely unfair to the most deserving people.
True.
And fair to the most undeserving, but maybe that's the balance. It's not for me to question. Behind the Symbols.
The 4 symbols were first introduced to the rock media via a series of teaser adverts placed on billboards and in the music papers weeks leading up to.
Also, real quick, I'm sorry. 1977, talking about the 2 jets sitting beside each other, was the year Leonard Skinner died on a plane. So that just hit me just now. Rest in peace. Steve Gaines, Cassie Gaines, and Ronnie Van Zant. And the rest of Skinner now.
To the album's release in late 1971. After all the crap that we'd had with the critics, I put it to everybody else that it'd be a good idea to put out something totally anonymous, Jimmy Page remembers. At first I wanted just one symbol on it, but then it was decided that since it was our 4th album and there were 4 of us, we could each choose our own symbol. The symbols for John Paul Jones is a single intersecting circle, said to symbolize a person who possesses both confidence and competence. John Bonham's 3 interlocking rings is said to represent the triad of mother, father, and child. It could be interpreted as a drum kit as well. It was also, somewhat appropriately, given the late drummer's penchant for alcoholic beverages, the logo for Ballantine beer. Robert Plant's symbol was apparently his own design, though it can also be traced to a book titled The Sacred Symbols of Mu by James Churchward. The feather in the circle represents the feather of Ma'at, the Egyptian goddess of justice and fairness, and is the emblem of a writer. The feather is a symbol on which all sorts of philosophies have been based. Noted Plant. It is often referred to as Zoso, and there have been various theories put forward surrounding its origin.
Lots.
Some point to it being used as early as 1557 in representing Saturn. This is right in line for Page, as his astrological sign is Capricorn, which is ruled by Saturn. When Jimmy was around 15, his parents bought for him a 1959 Futurama Grazioso. One of the Saturn symbols in the textbooks looks a little bit like Zoso of Grazioso. My symbol was about invoking and being invocative, Page told Classic Rock's Mick Wall in 2001, adding, "That's all I'm going to say about it." Whatever their meaning, these symbols have become synonymous with each member of Led Zeppelin. John Bonham's choice for his symbol was 3 interlocking rings. He easily could have went with 4 sticks. Number 8.
Two parts of Jimmy Page said, and that's all the hell I'm going to tell you about that. I love that he with the drum beat is because easily went with 4 sticks, which is obviously I love Tool. That is Danny Carey's when they ask him what his favorite composition of his hero John Bonham was 4 sticks. So.
Led Zeppelin. Behind the name. Eager to press the boundaries of the British blues revival, it was Page who took the crumbling Yardbirds and put together a new lineup. John Paul Jones on bass and keyboards, was an obvious choice for the band. Jones was a well-respected session musician in England at the time. Though Page wanted Terry Reid to front the new band, Reid was unavailable and suggested Band of Joy frontman Robert Plant for the job. Plant eventually agreed to join and brought John Bonham on drums, along from his previous project. Billed as the New Yardbirds, the quartet was assembled as a means of fulfilling tour contracts put together by Jimmy Page's then main band. The new band recorded their debut album based on their recently completed tour of Scandinavia. Prior to its release, guitarist Chris Drea of the Yardbirds issued a cease and desist letter forcing the band to come up with a new name. The origin of the band's name started when Jimmy Page, Jeff Beck, and The Who's Keith Moon and John Entwistle were discussing the idea of Jimmy forming a new group. Moon joked, "It would probably go over like a lead balloon," and Entwistle allegedly replied, "A Led Zeppelin." Intrigued, Page thought instead of balloon, a Zeppelin represented the perfect balance of heavy and light, combustibility, and grace. Band manager Peter Grant suggested the spelling LED to avoid mispronunciation. With the new name in tow, in time for the release of their debut album, Led Zeppelin not only got off the ground, but the band would ascend to legendary heights as one of the greatest in rock history.
Mispronunciation means American language is crazy because we have so many words that are spelled as it could be Lead Zeppelin.
Yep. It would sort of kill the band's aura
So
a
many
little bit.
damn words that are the same, man. It's fucking confusing to us too. So.
It is interesting that Jimmy Page took what was basically an insult
put down. Yeah.
and turned it as like, Zeppelin does have the right mixture of heaviness and combustible. I appreciate that. He sort of turned that, he owned it, and yeah, it became one of the most recognizable names out there.
And just for reference, Jeff Beck is who got my man here, Greg, interested in rock and roll and guitar. And he had a very close relationship with Jimmy Page. He gave Jimmy Page his first expensive guitar, which was a Fender. And that's why Jimmy Page incorporates Fender every now and then in his music.
I did not know that Zeppelin was basically formed as like the Yardbirds 2.0. Essentially, and then the original Yardbirds were like, no. And it's funny that Robert Plant wasn't their first choice as a frontman, too. It was second on...
No, but luckily, the man they wanted to knew about Robert Plant.
Yep,
so.
Funny how that worked.
And then Robert Plant drove John Bonham in.
Yeah, that's the stars aligning right there.
Then you have a 7-day soup that turned into a fucking gourmet meal.
A musical 7-day soup, yeah. That turned
If
into
you ever been to jail, you know what the hell I mean. What's love?
Number 7. Jamaica.
Come on, man.
Dire Mak'er. I don't, Jamaica?
I didn't think about that. Some of these songs you haven't heard, Greg. So, small spoiler alert here, but we're still going to react to them. But, yeah, I didn't know about this.
The title frequently mispronounced as Dear Maker or even Dire Maker.
I'm sorry, but what?
I was going to say, I think Led Zeppelin whipping out a reggae beat is going to be just as shocking to me, even if I've heard it once before. So,
Maker is actually meant to be pronounced Jamaica, in a double-edged reference to the old joke that Robert Plant regaled in a Rolling Stone interview, and also the way in which locals pronounce the name of their Caribbean island. In that 2005 interview, Plant discussed the different interpretations and pronunciations of the name of the song. He explained that the title is derived from an old joke, where two friends have the following exchange. My wife's gone to the West Indies.
Jamaica?
Which in an English accent sounds like, did you make her? No, she wanted to go. The title, which does not appear in the lyrics, was chosen because it reflects the reggae feel of the song, and as an example of the Led Zeppelin band members' senses of humor. Naturally, such a dramatic sound change for the band, heavily reliant on studio techniques, proved impossible to recreate on stage, and the band never played it live. I got one more thing. Did you make her? Number 6. Led Zeppelin Untitled. Led Zeppelin released their fourth album on November 8, 1971. In response to the treatment the band had received from critics, the band decided to release the album with no title. It is variously referred to as Led Zeppelin 4. Untitled, 4 symbols, Zoso, or runes. Their previous album, Led Zeppelin 3, was highly anticipated and topped the chart, but critics received it with mixed and unfavorable reviews. To follow Led Zeppelin 3, the band wanted to detach their name from the album, so with the new release there wasn't a title or track listing. There wasn't anything that was tied to Led Zeppelin. Along with the lack of information on the record, the band chose 4 symbols that represented each of them as members, which were included on the inner jacket of the record. Needless to say, the album was a hit. But what is and what should never be? Please hit like and subscribe. Number 5.
So you talk physical copies, Greg. I had that. As long as I can remember, one of the first CDs I had was, I thought it was the first Led Zeppelin CD because it was the Untitled one.
Right, yeah.
I always thought Houses of the Holy and Physical Graffiti, all these came after that one. Till
usually
fairly recently, I mean,
yeah.
in the
Usually
2000s.
It makes sense. Normally the self-titled album is the debut, so I can definitely see that. It's such an interesting band. Just even things like the Mak'er, like it's a joke, but like I always pronounced it Dire Maker. Like I never knew what the heck they were talking about, and again, it just adds to that little level of mystery, even though that's done completely tongue-in-cheek. And even like this, as a response to critics, they're sort of removing themselves completely from the album. Just always keeping people guessing. It's never ones to rest on their laurels. So,
and
it's one of the many.
I firmly believe that Tool has embraced that very well with Zeppelin.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. And I'd say it's worked out all right for Tool as well. I think.
Yes, sir. The last rock and roll band to have a #1 worldwide album. Keeping rock and roll alive. Let's go.
Hot Dog behind the song.
For reference, I've never heard this.
This rambunctious track from 1979's In Through the Outdoor, Hot Dog, grew out of the band's pre-production rehearsals, where they warmed up by playing a series of old Elvis Presley and Ricky Nelson covers. The lyrics are about a girl in Texas who took my heart, may have been based on a real woman in Plant's life. But he called this a tribute to Texas and the state of mind of the people who live there. The song said to be inspired by Audrey Hamilton, Plant's road wife who was from Texas. Robert wrote about their spring fling, including the lyric, I took her love at 17. But this is inaccurate, and Audrey later confirmed, the song is indeed about her, but stating she was actually 20 at the time.
We will be reacting to this because I've never heard the song. I think In Through the Outdoor was Zeppelin's last album.
I think so, yeah.
Page used a Fender Telecaster, outfitted with a device called a B-Bender, along with John Paul Jones using a Steinway grand piano for the recording, despite not being the big hit. Hot Dog is a fun, rocking tune with a kick. From Black Dog to Hot Dog. Number 4. The Fifth Zeppelin.
Didn't know this either.
It makes sense that a band as talented as Led Zeppelin would rarely enlist outside collaborators. But on their Untitled 4th album, the quartet broke tradition and recruited singer-songwriter Sandy Denny to record the only vocal duet in their catalog, the power folk ballad, The Battle of Evermore. In Evermore, Plant sings of a Queen of Light and Prince of Peace, embroiled in an epic battle against the dark. As Plant narrates the battle, Denny, a member of the British folk rock band Fairport Convention, serves as the town crier, interjecting in her haunting croon, Dance in the dark of night, sing to the morning light. Plant explained on his Digging Deep podcast in 2019 that the song has two parts of the story. Plant said his attempts to sing both parts of the song didn't sound right in one voice, one pitch. So he and guitarist Jimmy Page sought assistance from Denny, who the members of Zeppelin admired. To thank her for her involvement, Denny was given the symbol on the album sleeve of 3 pyramids. The Battle of Evermore remains one of Led Zeppelin's most enduring songs. Thanks to Denny. Number 3. Legacy, influence, and cultural significance. Led Zeppelin is one of the best-selling bands in the history of audio recording, with various sources estimating the group's record sales at nearly 300 million units worldwide. Every single member of Led Zeppelin is considered one of, if not the greatest in the field, and it is debatable that Led Zeppelin is one of the greatest bands ever put together. Led Zeppelin songs and movies are rare, but almost always noteworthy when it happens, as the band's songs can leave a big impact on audiences when used correctly. One of the prime examples of this was in the 1982 classic, Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
No problem, Red. What you need is my special 5-point plan.
Come on, Damone, I need real help here.
And 5. Now this is most important, Red. It comes down to making out. Whenever possible, put on side 1 of Led Zeppelin 4.
That's physical graffiti.
This is a nice car.
Yeah, it's my sister's.
Yeah?
I guess his sister only had physical graffiti. Number 2. Behind Misty Mountain Hop.
My favorite.
And where is that confounded bridge? Beyond the sawing riffs and rattling stomps, there was always something a little hippie-ish about Led Zeppelin. One critic memorably described lyrical detours like Misty Mountain Hop as dated flower child gibberish. Robert Plant stood his ground, presumably in bell-bottoms. The essence of the whole trip was the desire for peace and tranquility, and an idyllic situation, he told Rolling Stone in 1975. Misty Mountain Hop managed to unapologetically combine all 3 of these basic elements, the stomps for sure, and the sawing riff, and most certainly, the hippy-dippy stuff. Plant places himself amid a real-life July 1968 rally in London's Hyde Park, where protesters encouraging the legalization of marijuana were dispersed by police. He encourages the scattering potheads to trade in harsh city life for the bucolic freedoms of the rural Welsh countryside. Or maybe the Misty Mountains, of course. Now the crunge. And where is that confounded bridge? As things abruptly end and Plant asks, "Where's that confounded bridge?" All of a sudden it is exactly clear what he's talking about. The band didn't write a bridge into the music. A song like The Crunge would ordinarily contain a bridge, but the boys playfully left it out, self-deprecatingly accepting their inability to play any genre they like. The James Brown-inspired funk of The Crunge isn't miles off the sonic the group had established for themselves post-Zoso. Rather, it's a creative variation on a theme. Now, The Crunge isn't a bad song. It's actually great fun, and alongside Jermica, it's one of the key examples of the use of humor in Led Zeppelin's music. Have you seen the bridge?
I ain't seen the bridge!
Where's that confounded bridge?
Number 1. Physical graffiti behind the cover.
Love this, love this.
The building on the cover of Led Zeppelin's 1975 album Physical Graffiti is a physical place. It's actually 2 physical places. It's 2 apartment buildings that were built side by side at 96 and 98 St. Mark's Place in New York City, New York. The cover presents a unique feature, with internal sleeves that could be swapped out to present different scenes. One such scene is, of course, the red letters that spell out physical graffiti in each window. Another sleeve scene includes photos of notable celebrities in each window, including W.C. Fields, Laurel and Hardy, King Kong, and Buzz Aldrin. Additionally, the front side of the album jacket is a daytime scene, while the back is a night scene. Graphic designer Peter Corriston found the buildings for the cover and masterminded the artwork into existence. We walked around the city for a few weeks looking for the right building, Corriston said in a 2008 interview about the physical graffiti art. Another little-known fact is that the St. Mark's Place buildings play a role in the musical history of another famous band, the Rolling Stones. In the Stones' 1981 Waiting on a Friend music video, Mick Jagger is filmed waiting for bandmate Keith Richards on the stoop of the famous buildings. Those changeable inner sleeves in physical graffiti served as another innovative design by Zeppelin and Corriston. You always knew the boys had something up their collective sleeves. I heard it on the X.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles!
All right, Elvis has left the building.
Thanks for watching. Tell them you heard it on the X.
Guys, we heard it on the X. All right. Did my duty there.
Yeah, that was great, man. A lot of that I didn't know. And that's what I said in the opening when you was shitting. That was a shitty story. But that usually when I see these things you didn't know is usually things that real fans do know. But that was good. So I subscribed to that channel, and I haven't seen anything else. But
yeah, that
was really good, very detailed, very good, well made.
And two things that struck home for me is that number one, Zeppelin was a band that put a lot of thought into everything that they did, even down to their album covers. They understood the importance of visuals, but they weren't too good to make fun of themselves either. They had a sense of humor as well. And just going through some of those songs, their sheer musical variety that was involved. Like there was they had the reggae beat, and then Hot Dog was like this weird kind of like turbocharged surf hoedown.
Yeah, I've never heard it. I mean,
yeah, that was crazy. And then you had like the sort of the folk balladry of Battle of Evermore, and sort of like the hippie rock of Misty Mountain Hop, and then the funk of the grunge. Like, yeah, they could pretty much do every genre that they wanted, and still make it sound like Zeppelin. That's really impressive. Zeppelin is one of the
part the other day. What do you think I saw? Sorry.
But no, Zeppelin is one of those bands that everyone's heard of. Everyone's heard the name Led Zeppelin. But when you actually sort of go into their music, it's like you understand just not just the reason for the fame, but the influence as well. How much that was going on there that other bands were taking from. As any smart person would, like I said, just tools, sort of, learning from their enigmatic nature. Just they're keeping critics guessing. Pretty much every rock singer from then on trying to emulate Robert Plant, as Plant was emulating, the blues singers and such that came before him. Just Bonham being such an influence as a drummer, and even things like their production in the studio and stuff like that, they were putting a lot more thought into that than a lot of bands were. So yeah, Zeppelin was the whole package.
No doubt. All right, 33 minutes. Love that number. So much love. Mental health is real. Hope you enjoyed this. We enjoyed doing it.
Hell yeah.
Spur of the moment thing. So I'm gonna try to end this. Well, now. Love you all.